Well, he's not an old man. He took the form of an old man.
Yeah. But his human...
Was he not an old alien?
Joseph Gordon-Levitt, I think, was the oldest alien of the group, but was the youngest human form.
And Bill Shatner was the giant floating head.
Was the giant floating head.
Or not floating head, just the big giant head.
I tuned out.
Welcome to Funhaus, everybody. This week's episode is sponsored by HelloFresh. My name's Daniel. I've got my friends Alana, James, and Adam with me this week.
Hello.
We are going to talk about It Chapter 2. So in case you didn't know, Pennywise has returned 27 years after the Losers Club thought that they had beat him. The losers are now split up, they've left Derry, and barely remember their traumatic childhood experiences. So they must get back together and conquer their fears in order to defeat Pennywise once and for all. So we got to see an early screening of It, which I had a blast at. I hope you guys did too.
Oh,
Good time.
absolutely.
Good time.
What'd y'all think? I don't know. I after seeing It just a couple of weeks ago, James forced me to.
Keep saying that.
He sent me a text and he said, "Can we watch It?"
I had a blast. I loved It, and the second part kind of left me, I don't know, feeling strange. I didn't quite love it as much as I loved
Question for
part
the room.
one.
Did everyone watch the TV series?
Yes.
No. I was terrified by the commercials when I was a kid.
I feel like your enjoyment of this film is sort of based on whether the same way you feel about that TV series, because the first half of that series is pretty awesome, just like the first movie. Second half, it's not very good. It's not fun.
When they become adults?
But the second movie, I thought
People say that about the book too, I think.
I was saying, Elise isn't here. Elise read the book, has read the book. I haven't read the book. I am familiar with it through Wikipedia articles and the miniseries and stuff like that. So I'm kind of like, I get it. I feel like the general consensus is the book's strength and weaknesses are the same. So one of the cool things about it is it's this really great story of these kids going on dealing with like a very frightening Goonies type adventure or ordeal in their youth, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where most stories would end. But what makes Stephen King is that he was like, what if that's just part of the story? Mm-hmm. What if I then told the rest of the story about how kids would grow into adults and then try and not deal with that trauma, but ultimately you need to face that trauma before you can grow as people, and that's what I think makes it such a memorable, important work. But I also think that extra bit is never as good as the heart of the story, which are the kids. And so anytime it's moved into a new media, in this case mostly TV and film, I think you're always going to kind of be stuck with this situation where the kid's story is it's so consolidated.
Oh, and that's what I connected to, I guess, is these kids.
It's just, but it's also, it's a story. It stands on its own. You could watch the first It and never have to ever think about it ever again. Mm-hmm. But this movie you can't watch without the other. It's a companion piece, you know? So it's a weird situation. You're kind of already setting the finish line a little bit further away.
Yeah, I think you're right 100% in that it's also probably difficult for anyone to like part 2 more than part 1. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's a hard call to make. But
despite having 10 times the cast.
Yeah.
Acting talent from those adults is crazy.
Bill Hader might be my favorite part of the movie. I thought he was fantastic.
He was just
my favorite actor anyway. He absolutely killed it, but so did the kids.
the casting, I think, in both movies was impeccable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so, number one, getting all those kids, thank God it wasn't just the cast from Stranger Things. They only got one of them, so they didn't lean too hard into that. But then finding adults that acted like those kids and then looked like those kids, but then also were evolutions of those. I don't know.
They took on some of the mannerisms that those child actors came up with.
I have a bunch of theories about that, and some of the things that I liked in the movie were some things that took me a while to realize. There were things that I didn't like that when I figured out what they were trying to do, I was like, oh, actually, I love that. My only complaint with the cast is I feel like because they were trying to act like these kids, I didn't always feel like they had chemistry. I felt like the kids had chemistry. The adults, I did not feel that way.
Well, and they had split up. They were apart for so long. Maybe they had lost whatever made them friends.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think you're right. The kids had some sort of magic that those adult actors, who are clearly superior actors, weren't able to muster.
But even that's kind of just like a built-in flaw of the story itself.
Agreed.
Because you're supposed to see these children who find each other in this most desperate of times, right? Whereas the whole point of the second part of the story is people who have grown apart and honestly, like, managed to live very separate lives. They're at different points where they don't need these other people. But it is weird watching it as a movie because you want your cast to have chemistry with each other, and they just don't. And that makes sense for the story, but it's harder to watch.
Yeah.
It's a really weird situation.
I mean, but there is even a romantic thing that, in theory, they should have had chemistry that I just didn't buy at all.
Yeah, that's true.
There are parts that I was just like, but that's the only issue that I have with them. Yes, they look the same, and yes, a lot of their mannerisms are the same, but they didn't click with each other too well.
The miniseries kind of felt like that too, actually, and that's sort of that's where my brain keeps going to. Whereas I'm like, I remember just being so bored in the second part because the first part is so good in that show for its time. Maybe it's not aged as well, but
it hasn't.
If I recall, it's mostly them just sort of walking around, and then at one point, one of the characters' his wife comes into town, and Pennywise is like working at a gas station, and he's like, "Come on to Darien," and then he looks into the deadlights, and then that becomes a subplot that I'm glad they didn't include in the film because it just goes nowhere. And then she goes catatonic, and then to save her, he has to like take her on his bike, and I'm like, why are we?
Oh yeah.
It's just like, what do we?
I hated that.
That whole thing culminated with him fighting like a giant puppet. I was just like, this sucks.
Yeah.
I'm not digging this. And then isn't there the part where he tries to hit him with the spray?
Well, so the main things that I always remembered about the It miniseries were it's battery acid scum, and then as a kid he sprays Pennywise in the face with his inhaler, and he believes it's battery acid, so he goes and then freaks out. But then he tries again as an adult, but since he's an adult, he doesn't actually truly believe it, so it's not as powerful a weapon. And then, so it doesn't work, and then he dies, are the two things I remember. And then also I remember a head in a fridge.
Checks out.
Yeah.
So we are trying to remain slightly spoiler free.
I was talking about the miniseries.
For a few more minutes.
Yeah, we're referring to the miniseries.
Well, also just clarifying for the audience.
I will say, without super spoilery stuff, I had read a thing about what was in the original script from what's the True Detective guy?
Fukunaga?
Yeah, he had written a bit that I've only read about. I actually never read the script, but because I wanted to see them do it. But it's supposed to be like sort of not the origin of Pennywise, but a like 18th century like a skeletal sort of like spider-like creature that's all flesh that's like eating a baby.
Isn't the Dark Tower? Doesn't the Dark Tower explore the origin of Pennywise?
I believe it does.
Yeah, I mean Pennywise.
Or the magic turtle thing.
Yeah, because I mean Dark Tower is sort of the center of everything, so it all comes from there anyway. But like even in the new the Dark Tower movie, there is a like Pennywise reference. But
it's
just like a background Easter egg. Or?
Yeah, I think
there's a billboard.
Yeah, I think it was a billboard for Pennywise the Clown or something like that. But that's it.
That could have been a fun thing.
Yeah. Hey, also
not in the movie.
Was it Pet Cemetery? Someone stuck in traffic going to Derry.
Yeah.
Nice. Not a real
Did anyone see that?
I did. I did see it, and I do remember.
What a tight universe.
I will just say that one of the bigger, the part that made me feel a little empty with the movie was I was hoping for more, and they hint at it, but some more like Pennywise backstory. Not that I need it necessarily.
I think this movie could have just flat out had more Pennywise in it.
That would
he was in the first one a lot, right?
He was at the end, of course, like in the climactic action, but there were only a few little bits of him throughout the movie.
I'll be honest, I love him.
Yeah.
And the scenes in both movies where he
steals the show.
And what they do to symbolize his frightening world is always very clever. Like, it's kind of like, it got bad towards the end, but like in Saw, you basically watch it to just see what the Saw Imagineers came up with to like kill people this time. You're curious about it. That's kind of what Pennywise was in these movies, where it's like, oh, I can't wait to see how he reinterprets this fear into something like physical.
It's very creative, but he's also just endearing to watch. Like I think that there's probably only one in chapter 2, an instance where he actually talks to a kid, and you just see him talking to the kid, and I love watching that.
Yeah.
Like, you know what's going to happen to the kid. It's probably not going to be great in most circumstances, but he's just so fun to watch.
You see it in that trailer when he captures the little firefly and goes, hello, and he's like doing that all like,
Pennywise.
Hi, Georgie.
Poor Pennywise.
I wanted to see more Pennywise through the ages. Like I wanted when they did that thing in the trailer when they're like, "That's my father. He was in the circus, you know." And I was like, "Oh, cool. We're gonna see some stuff like
I didn't want that at all.
I really want to see
No,
that.
I'm like, don't show me any Pennywise origin because I think it's all made up anyway.
Well, no, not. But he took a form of a clown for a reason, and it was inspired by Stephen King because of John Wayne Gacy, which makes total sense because a clown is supposed to give children a sense of. I mean, clowns are fucking scary, but it's supposed to make children feel like, oh, fun, play, and that's how John Wayne Gacy killed people. But
I had that question: why does it present as a clown?
I just answered it.
Well,
but
kids like
because
clowns.
I think
But he's like been on Earth. Well,
I think
he's been around for a long time.
I just think
like
there's this implication in the first movie that like this town is infected with Pennywise,
Right.
Right. And so I think with that there is a curiosity. There was for at least me a curiosity of why is it this town that's being infected, and what has it done over the centuries? And they've implied, like, there's one scene where the kid Ben is in the library in the first movie, and you kind of see like, oh well, there's this big this egg festival, and there's an explosion, and a bunch of people died, and it's like, oh, is this linked to him somehow? It would. I'm kind of with Adam. I think I wouldn't have mind seeing a little bit more about like how the town has kind of evolved over the ages.
Well, I think it's. I mean, this is getting into lore, but I think a lot of it is like part of in the first movie. He also is like every 27 years a bunch of kids die.
Yeah.
So they go on that, but then I think a big theme of it is that they all forget. Everyone always forgets.
Yeah.
So like they could have shown us that in the movie, but I think I'm fine with me just seeing him stand alone being creepy because I love him and I don't need to know anything else.
I like the idea that the reason why people forget was sort of their deal with the devil, which is Pennywise only goes after kids, and that goes back. Right? That's what I think they were trying to establish in that original script, which is early like pioneers sacrificing their children to this demigod, and that was sort of their pact. Was like, well, you can take the children as long as you leave us alone. And I mean, like that. They show freaking like old pictures of him and during like the signing of the Declaration of Independence.
I just love the little pieces of lore that aren't filled in, but I get what you're saying.
I think part of it goes to the movie is 2 hours and 40 something minutes long.
Yeah.
Which
pretty long movie.
It flew by for me.
Yeah, it didn't feel long for me at all.
But that's a really long time, and if you're gonna pack a movie with that, I feel like there's stuff like that I'm more curious about than stuff that they did actually show me.
I mean, we got a lot of flashbacks.
Well, we also
got
my main extended
beef.
sequences of people buying bicycles.
Also
that was his. Spoilers.
I know. I'm just saying. Like,
I was gonna say that is maybe my big beef with this movie is that so the adults grew up and they forgot what happened to them. And we spend a giant chunk of this movie of them coming home and remembering what happened. And hey, we've got to beat Pennywise. I saw the first movie like 2 weeks ago. I didn't need to see it again for an hour.
The movie assumes you've forgotten too, which is kind of like
maybe.
Yeah, which I had, so it was very helpful.
That's good. I mean, it's like Endgame doesn't necessarily show you all the stuff Thanos did again to make sure you're up to speed, and like it was weird. It felt like yeah, I get it. It's a sequel. Like, you're going to keep going. I don't need you to show me full scenes from the first movie again, because they did actually do that.
But it seemed a little bit like a step back to me. It's like, we're spinning our wheels, and we have a 3-hour movie. We should have cut some of that.
They had that, and then the pacing was a little off, too, and it sort of scares for the sake of scares, which I guess maybe the first movie did do, but I remember it, I guess being in the shoes of a child makes it more frightening. I don't know. Like,
the world seems
when it's an adult being chased by Pennywise, you're like, okay, you know it feeds on your fear, so just stop being afraid of it. You're an adult.
So that's the thing that at the start of the movie that I wasn't buying into was, I mean, maybe this is spoilery. I don't know. Can we jump into spoilers now?
Sure. Why, just okay. Yeah, we're doing spoilers.
well, before we, I guess just. I would say go see it.
Yeah.
Before we spoil it.
Also, it's very funny. I feel like it is more of a comedy than a horror.
Bill Hader freaking kills it. A lot of people keep saying
Skarsgård kills it as Pennywise.
Yeah, absolutely. But they're like, Oscar, give Bill Hader an Oscar. And I'm like,
I thought he did amazing.
Sure, maybe.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I don't know about
if
that.
we're okay with that.
But the guy that played Grown Up Eddie, James Ransone, I thought was also like a standout performance. I remember him since The Wire, but he is spectacular.
Casting directors should get Academy Awards.
Yeah.
Because
whoever did this one does.
Obviously they figured out this cast before. I don't think they announced it until after the first movie came out, but it's clear that they were planning on making both.
Of course.
And so they had a cast in place. But geez.
In the case of Eddie, it seems like the adult actor made the child actor do the scene and then copied him. It's
Yes.
that spot on.
Might have.
Which there's a scene from like the special features on Forrest Gump where Tom Hanks was not going to do the accent, the Forrest Gump voice. He was just going to do a Tom Hanks voice, but kind of slow. But they cast a kid who had this major Southern drawl, and then he did some scenes side by side with him. For like screen tests or whatever. And then he was like, "Oh, that's a really good voice." And then he mimicked that for the whole movie. So the Forrest Gump voice was invented by the kid actor.
Interesting.
They did the same with Harry Potter. Bellatrix Lestrange has to act as Hermione, so she actually had Emma Watson act the scene out and then copied her.
Yeah.
Why is that?
So that she could act like Hermione acting like her.
It's in Deathly Hallows Part 2 when they take the polyjuice or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's...
but she's impersonating that.
It's Helena Bonham Carter pretending to be someone.
I was like,
is
Bellatrix Hermione's mom?
No, it's just a cool thing to watch.
So we can get to spoilers. I would say also go see this.
Of course.
It's a fun movie. I had my problems with it. I didn't like it as much as the first part.
Same.
Yeah.
But it was still a fun ride, and I wanted to see how Pennywise
There's some
got
technical things I thought that maybe felt a little rushed. I remember when they announced before the movie came out, they're like, yeah, there's some flashbacks, and we had to de-age the kids. That's how it goes. It's like, I wish...
No.
There was some de-aging that didn't look great.
It's like Rivals, X-Men Last Stand... Professor, like smooth Picard coming in. Like,
so amazingly, I didn't know that and didn't notice it at all.
Really? My gosh.
There was some dodgy effects working in this.
But the problem is it's a scene that I like. Ultimately, I was like, I don't know that we needed to see that scene. But it was like, there's some effect stuff, and they also pitch up the kids' voices. They did
not notice.
Like weird voice pitching, and I was like, you're a monster.
I'm looking forward to a version where it's both movies cut into one 4-hour movie. Yeah, I heard the director's doing that
390-minute cut.
Yeah, and I think you can cut some of the kid flashbacks.
I think it might actually be good because I think you would get rid of some of the retreading ground.
Yeah,
everything would be fresh, and I think you would because like you said, it was good that they reminded you what had happened. But if you just got it then, I think the pacing would probably overall be better.
The way I understand it, it's just more of everything. I don't know if they trim much of it out, but they add a lot of deleted scenes. He's got 2 director's cuts, supposedly.
Oh, wow.
Right. Show me that Pennywise flesh spider.
I mean, I think it's great. Like, compared to a lot of Stephen King, it's way better than Pet Sematary was.
It is, I mean, next to Shawshank Redemption and The Green Mile.
Well, those don't count. Okay,
How dare you? Those are Stephen King.
Yeah, I know they are, but I'm talking about classic Stephen King horror. It kind of defeats the purpose of being in a house of mirrors if you can't see yourself. Huh?
I mean, I loved Carrie.
Virtual.
It's that way.
So, are we into spoilers?
Yeah. Well, let me do a little ad read first.
All right. Okay. Sure.
Where did it go?
It's HelloFresh.
So instead of feasting on the fear of young children, check out HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. You can get easy seasonal recipes and pre-measured ingredients delivered right to your door. All you have to do is cook and enjoy. HelloFresh makes cooking delicious meals at home a simple reality, regardless of your comfort in the kitchen. From step-by-step recipes to pre-measured ingredients, you'll have everything you need to get a wow-worthy dinner on the table in just about 30 minutes. HelloFresh has exposed me to tons of delicious recipes I never would have attempted on my own. Break out of your dinner rut with 17 seasonal chef-curated recipes each week. There's something for everyone. From family recipes to calorie smart and vegetarian, and fun miniseries like Hall of Fame and craft burgers. Picky? Hectic schedule? HelloFresh fits your lifestyle. It's flexible. Easily change your delivery days, food preferences, and skip a week whenever you need to. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm a pork man. I'm big on the pig. I loved this week's cherry balsamic pork chops with garlic herb couscous and roasted broccoli. The chops were tender and delicious, and I learned how to make couscous for the first time. My favorite part of HelloFresh is learning how to make something new. So for $80 off your first month of HelloFresh, go to HelloFresh.com/Filmhouse80 and enter promo code Filmhouse80. That's $80 off your first month of HelloFresh. Go to HelloFresh.com/Filmhouse80 and then use the promo code Filmhouse80. Thanks, HelloFresh, for sponsoring us this week, letting us talk about Pennywise and It Chapter 2. Where's Pennywise? Is this straight?
Did he show up in here? Where he at?
Yeah, he seems to be.
Oh, that went black.
This is a fun thing I noticed.
I missed him.
Whenever we do a podcast, Dan curates a list.
There he
is.
Is that Pennywise? Dan creates an entire YouTube list, so we're just, for audio listeners, saying we watch a bunch of videos, but these are all things I avoid like the plague before a movie that I care about. So now I get to watch these weird, some marketing department was like, what if we do a 360 video to them it's still the year 2014.
The best part is the
into it.
trailer rolling at the beginning in 3D.
Yeah.
But you're just in a room.
Well,
Just
it has to
following
provide
it.
the context.
Yeah.
I'm so confused. Anyway.
Okay, so the thing that I
All
kept
right.
wanting to say was
spoilers.
Yeah, we're in spoiler
first-
territory. Everybody, if you're afraid of spoilers,
Get outta here.
Go watch the movie and come back.
These are
This isn't a major spoiler, but we probably will have them soon. At first, when I was watching it, I felt really strange about the adults being scared, and the way that Pennywise was represented to the adults was things that kids would be afraid of. Then as I was watching, I was like, wait, I feel like what's happened here is that intentionally, as soon as they went back to Derry, they reverted to children. The things they're afraid of are things kids would be afraid of, like
makes
a
sense.
scary old lady. And they all act like their childhood selves, and they basically just like default to who they were in Derry.
They are essentially different people before
Yeah.
coming back, so
Yeah.
makes
So
sense.
to me, I was like, okay, I get why it seems so childish and why the adults are afraid, because they're still just those same fucking kids. And I think the whole point of that is they never dealt with their childhood trauma. So it's like, you will not grow through this until you deal with the childhood trauma. So we're going to force it on you so that you get through it. And then I was like, oh, no, I appreciate this a whole bunch.
Yeah.
That's got to be the theme of this movie. Is what happens to adults when there is some sort of traumatic event in their childhood.
Well, also that they pushed it away and forgot about it
Exactly.
and never
They
actually dealt with it.
Well, I think that's most people. You don't deal with trauma.
One of my favorite scenes is like basically one at a time. They all get the call from Mike saying like, "Hey, I'm pretty sure he's back." And so now we need to fulfill the pact we made at the end of the first movie. And when you see that he's called Bill Hader's character Richie, he's vomiting over the side of a railing, just like kind of physically repulsed by the idea of it. And then they show that he had gotten the call right before going on stage to do something terrifying, which is perform a stand-up comedy set in front of like
His special.
15,000 people in a extremely popular venue or whatever, but he's not thinking about that.
Yeah.
He's thinking about what's actually frightening to him. So
Yeah.
like kind of going back to what you're saying, like the thing that adults find frightening is not scary to him.
Yeah.
The thing that kids find frightening
Exactly.
gave him a literal physical reaction.
Yeah, I mean,
And-
so the similar thing happens to
Beverly.
Beverly. So to Beverly, when she gets the phone call, she is immediately a victim of domestic abuse. Same thing that happened to her when she was a kid. It's the exact same pattern of things that happen, and they all basically go through something traumatic as soon as they're brought back into Derry. And the movie starts in a really brutal way with some very intense homophobia
that
ends in
might have
something
been the
awful
most
happening.
brutal part of the whole movie.
Yeah, it's very
actually, was,
unsettling.
the
And
gay
then
bashing.
to get domestic abuse so quickly after that is like, damn, but it's telling you on the impact of 27 years later, Pennywise is back. You all have to deal with this. Come along. And I guess that whole theme that he's corrupted Derry and everyone who's going to Derry and the fact that they're all coming back there is just like, yep, everything's fucking awful.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's really good. I think there's just some parts of it that I'm like, I don't know. It's a weird execution. I think Dan, you were in the car with us when you were driving home, and I said that with like diving, Olympic diving, if you attempt a more difficult dive, there's not necessarily greater leniency, but there's a greater ceiling on the points you can acquire for that dive as opposed to attempting a very simple dive and executing it perfectly. Like, so I think this movie was a very difficult dive, and I don't think that it nailed it, but I do think that it came pretty close.
Yeah.
And it's way better than if they had tried to simplify the story or dumb it down or make it weaker in some ways and then been like, hey, that was easy, it's a horror movie, whatever. Pennywise is just scaring people again,
No,
I mean, if they tried to make it one movie instead of two,
well,
or
cheated. Just in terms
that
of
would've
they
been
lead
bad.
more into it. Oh, it's just a scary movie and not exploring
I
the
definitely
issues
feel like
and
the
stuff.
fact that it was them being afraid of the shit they were afraid of as kids, like it's exactly the same for Eddie. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
It shows that he just never grew out of it. I feel like all of that stuff is smart. They could have been a lot dumber with it.
I just ultimately everything feels the feeling I felt over and over. Obviously, you were saying the theme of the movie is trauma. The theme I felt was like aimlessness or pointlessness. Like it wasn't like we need to stop Pennywise before he. It's something like if he eats another 30 kids, he'll live forever or something like that. It was just sort of like everyone's sort of meandering, and then they had this like sort of Horcrux storyline of like we must find random objects that we have.
We need our totem.
We have arbitrarily decided like, is that something they mentioned in the first movie?
No, it's very quick, and it is
Part
weird
of
where
his
they
ritual.
focus stuff. But Mike, in an effort to staying with the town and having these memories, went to the oldest people from the land, were a Native American tribe, and they imparted wisdom upon him that they've been dealing with the same frightening force for a very long time too. And the only time they've managed to figure out that it can punish it is through this ritual and stuff. But it's unclear necessarily
how or why.
I feel like it felt like a video game. That part to me was like, you need to go find your 7 totems and then come back.
I mean, it was weird exposition.
That's where, I mean, where like you get a taste when they're like, they do the thing. They don't go as much as they did. Like, I'm with you. I went through the Wikipedia thing. I actually never read the book, but from my understanding, that like the it creature is a celestial being.
Yeah.
He's the evil side, whereas there's a giant turtle floating in space, which is the good side, and he basically shat out or burped out the evil, which is it, and he landed on our planet, and he feeds off of fear, which is really cool. So I was like, okay, so I guess maybe if it had made a deal with these people, but they were holding on to a secret, if they know how to defeat it, that there would be something there. But it just sort of, like you said, it's just sort of like told real quick in a flashback, like, and this is how we do it, and we'll use this thing and we'll kill it, and that's it, we're done.
The totem thing for me was just a metaphor that was like, you have to deal with your childhood trauma or this won't work. That's how I read that. It was like, sure, they have to go get an object, but to do that, the actual thing they had to do was all deal with an individual flashback that wasn't in the first movie. Yeah. They were all being confronted by the thing they're afraid of. So that was what it was actually doing, but via video game tasks that seemed silly.
It was weird because, in the movie it's it's a symbol, right? But the movie tells you it's literal.
Yeah.
But then
it says it's part of a spell that will kill Pennywise.
But then, spoiler, at the end of the movie, it's metaphorical.
Yeah.
So it is kind of a weird back and forth. It didn't bother me so much because I guess it's weird because the movie begins with the reuniting, right? It's these people coming back together, but it's also a scary movie. And movies aren't very scary when everyone's all together.
Right.
Yeah.
And they've already established a rule that they're stronger when they're together. So basically,
also they'll all die if they don't do this.
Well, then they also put this weird time limit on it where it's like, this is our last chance to kill them, otherwise you're all going to die. And so you can't have the movie continue with them as a group, so you need to separate them again. And I think that those totems were the tool for that. The only thing that got me was, as soon as everyone broke off to do their totems, it's like the movie reset on itself, and everyone was just walking around Derry like, wow, look at this place.
That's my bike.
Ooh, and I'm like, no, I would be running around going, have you seen my totem? Have you seen my totem? Like freaking out. Like there's no. Yeah. It's just a weird tonal shift where once they do split on their paths, it feels like they reset their urgency meters, and I wish there was some way to carry it. Like, again, mentioned earlier, there's literally a sequence.
Maybe if they had have bought into the metaphor more, because that's the thing, is that didn't bother me again, because I'm like, I know that what they're trying to do is just relive their childhoods, which is like experience dairy, deal with the trauma, and get out. The totems don't actually matter. But you're right that in terms of pacing, if you take it literally and it sells it to you literally, it's like, what the fuck are you doing? Go get the goddamn totem.
And there's a sequence where James McAvoy's character, like, literally is walking down the street and goes, hey, my bike. Yeah. And he like finds his bike in a bike store and then has an extended sequence of that, which I understand why it's in the movie, but I also
it reads to me like the childhood purity and excitement is
kind
the
of.
point.
But it felt like the wrong time because we had just explained how his life and everyone and all future children's lives are at stake. Yeah. And then he was like, hey, my bike. And then I was like, oh, well, maybe the bike's his totem, but it's not.
Yeah, I thought it would be too.
Was that not his totem?
No.
How's he going to shove it in the box? The box is too small.
Oh.
I forgot what his totem was.
It's the boat.
George's boat. Yeah. My
that was pointless,
biggest issue with the movie, aside from them not having too much chemistry and the romance subplot, not being a fan of that, was the end of the movie is just so many them seeing false things, like someone's drowning in sand, someone's drowning in blood, then it's just all of these visual stimulants of you seeing things that aren't even actually happening. Or like if they had just been Pennywise and had just been afraid of him, I would have been like, at least it's a little more grounded. But it's just so much visual bullshit they just throw on you. It was like, okay.
It's still better, like I said, than the TV series, which is it's them in a cave and there's this spider like, I'm a spider. And then they take a stick and they stab it and then it goes, no, and it falls down a hole and they're like, we did it. Yeah. So I was like, oh, cool. This one I was actually grateful for, like, they did the gambit. They ran everything where it's like there's the psychological horror. There's Pennywise as a giant spider creature,
which was awesome. Actually,
I thought it was actually well done. And
it looked really good. All the CG money was spent on
I
making
liked the spider
Pennywise
head a whole
red.
lot. That was great.
it was very
good.
the Thing.
Oh, the Thing
very
reference
Carpenter. Yeah,
that came out of the fridge.
Yeah.
Yes, that
I loved
stuff
that.
was frightening.
Cool scene.
Yeah. So like, I once again adore the ending much more than the original series because that's all I have to base it on. Never read the book, but it's still as I'm with you, Alana, where it's like it's a lot of shit hitting you. It's still visually very appealing. Like,
and well done.
Like great scene where the fat kid, the previously fat kid is drowning in excess, and then the girl who's having female growing up with female things drowning in blood. I was like,
Stephen King's obsessed with that.
He loves
more periods.
Yeah, he loves menses. He knows women.
Yeah, I think it was just a part where it was that shit was all like overwhelming to me in a way that didn't give me anything, whereas everything else that it did, I found satisfying as soon as my brain clicked to they have become children again, and that's the only way Pennywise will, because why the fuck would Pennywise give a fuck about them as adults? So mentally they became kids.
He wanted them to return, right? Because they got away.
Yeah.
Wasn't that a plot point?
Yeah, he sort of hints at it too. They say,
like, I've been thinking about you.
Yeah, the lines in the trailer where he's like, I missed you, and it's like it's the ones he didn't get.
Yeah.
And so he there was that James and I were talking about this a little bit after the movie, but it was like the whole theme being trauma. Even Pennywise is sort of scarred by trauma.
That's good.
They abandoned him.
Yeah, and he's like, you left me, come back. And they're the only adults that he's ever attached himself to.
Yeah, I think they're all, they have that poison where if they don't kill him, they're going to die. Mm-hmm. They've been poisoned by him, and I feel like he's probably connected to them and annoyed that they left and don't remember him in the same kind of way.
So I don't remember this part where if they didn't defeat him, they would die?
Yeah,
so
Beverly she saw the deadlights in the first movie, and then so she saw the future, which basically included everyone's deaths, which was going to happen because Stanley died because one of the children don't come back. Right. He gets the call and he goes, nope, and he slits his wrists. Yeah. And she knew that was going to happen because she remembered from when she was a girl, but she also saw deaths for everyone else when they were very young.
So basically, I think it's none of us make it another 27 years. Yeah. So if we don't do this, we'll all die.
Which again, I think is symbolic of the trauma of that previous event ultimately consuming you long after, decades after into your adulthood if you don't confront it. But it's still, like, again, in the movie, literally. Was used, and so that was the time limit where Mike was like, if you let him get away this time, because he only hangs out for a couple months every 27 years, then you will not get a chance to face this trauma, and you will be consumed by it.
Oh man, when
great
Bill,
themes, all great themes.
When Bill reveals that he wasn't actually sick and just didn't want to fucking play with Georgie, I thought that's pretty brutal.
But I also love the part where he kills him in the. He kills Georgie, basically.
He drowns him.
But I was like, that is fucking beautiful. Like, the fact that you did that, and you're like, no, it's not your fault. And he was saying that to his kid self, and then he fucking kills Georgie. He was just like, damn, dude.
It's the second time, though. The first one, he's like, kettle
through
his brain.
Yeah, true.
And then, but it is good. But even if you watch the first movie, the opening scene is him like, come on, you want to go play? And then he goes, sorry, Georgie, I can't. I'm really sick. So it was like, I like that.
I just thought he was a shitty actor. I was like, that kid doesn't seem sick.
It's like the first line of the movie or whatever, but I'm like, we paid that off. That's nice.
No. Look, if he went out and played with Georgie, he would have died anyway, too. So, your fault, Georgie, whatever.
Well, Georgie probably wouldn't have run his dumb ass into that, danger thing.
Yeah. There was the subplot, too, with McAvoy bugged me. No, I don't want to just spend spoilers shitting on the movie, because I'm
not shitting on it.
No, I mean, and like I said, I think it's weaker compared to the the first one, but
you're more inclined to criticize something when you like it. So we're like, absolutely. It was really good. Bummer about the things that
with all my issues with it, I'm still going to rewatch the first movie and go see the second one again.
Yeah, me too.
Because I actually legitimately really enjoy these movies. It's not like I love it, but I still think it's better than 99%
I had a
of the
ton of
horror out
fun
there.
watching it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's the McAvoy like subplot though, where he's like yelling at a child not to go near a sewer.
Yeah, a bit weird.
Which
Traumatizing.
I didn't think it
Like,
had
I
much
just
of,
wanna run
didn't
up
have
on
much
the
of a
skateboard.
payoff.
Well,
Also-
Well, because
it was
died. He didn't listen to
It was
him.
supposed to have a payoff, but
Yeah.
it ultimately didn't matter, and it was weird because wasn't that the same kid from the Chinese restaurant that
Yeah.
Bill Hader also yelled at? And I was
Yeah.
like, did they just not have enough kids?
Why do you keep being mean to this kid?
But yeah,
also, subplot that I felt didn't really pay off was I think his name's Henry.
Yes.
Knife guy.
I was going to talk about him. Crazy
Yeah.
knife guy.
Yeah, take
he
it away.
seemed like he was in a different movie.
Yeah.
I mean, he seemed like he was from a different film
That's
entirely.
how I remember the miniseries feeling
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
There was a creepy part where it's grown-up Henry. He's the kid who he gets arrested for killing his dad, and then there's a part where like Pennywise appears to him in the moon, and he's like, "Wake up, Henry! Time to go!" And he's like, oh, "Okay." And then there's a Rottweiler dressed as a clown that then attacks the
What?
guard, and that's how he get. That's all I remember as a kid.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I remember that being like, "That's so scary." But it all culminates to Harry like jumping out of a shower and like, "Yeah!" and slapping
Yeah.
somebody.
Comes out of a shower
and then
out
they,
of
like,
nowhere.
they beat the shit out of him, and it's over. And they're
Very strange.
And I think it's in the miniseries. It was Mike. They like stabbed Mike in the shoulder or something, and he's in a hospital, and he's like, "Go fight it without me. Sorry." And I was like, "Lucky." That must be nice.
And at some point, he just runs and jumps in his Camaro with a zombie.
It's his buddy. It's his
hauling
old
it
buddy.
right.
Yeah,
But
zombie.
it,
yeah,
I don't know,
zombie.
just, it
Kylo
seems
Penn,
different.
whatever.
I think the implication is these two were very, very strongly controlled by Pennywise. An indication that he's back in full force is that he is overtaking these two shitty, weak dudes again.
Well, his
But
But-
one of them's dead.
Well,
yeah,
so he like
but they just
reanimated
didn't
a body.
need to be there.
Henry saw his friend get sucked into the deadlights, right? That's what it was.
I don't know that he did.
I'm once again
Well,
I'm remembering
I
the
think some of
miniseries
their
more than the
friends
movie.
died, but I don't think Henry doesn't see
No,
the
no,
dead.
Remember the
he's-
kid gets sucked in and his legs and his head get.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's not in the movie.
It wasn't?
No.
Okay.
The
gotcha.
movie version's Henry is a little weird. It's kind of like almost a relic of trying to be true to the book because it doesn't. He's just kind of like is this kid. He's a bully, obviously,
He's a psycho.
but then the only real confrontation he has with the kids is he like gets a stone thrown at him and then is like really sad about it, and then his dad calls him an asshole for using his gun. And then Pennywise sends him a knife, and then from that point on, he's just like tranced. So
Yeah.
it was weird. It's his story is fully fleshed out. And
more-
Maybe it is just that, just to be known to the books.
What happened?
It is all worth it though for him stabbing Eddie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He stabs Eddie in the face, and Eddie's like, "What did you do?" And then just like slowly backs up.
Yeah.
It's like it's.
Well,
that whole
it also
sequence is
probably
pretty
has the funniest part in the movie when Bill Hader puts the axe in the back of Henry's head, and then he goes, "It's a deck."
fun. Yeah, he goes to try and make a funny quip like he always
we
does.
were just watching the trailer for the first movie, and again, I'm like, first movie was a lot scarier. Second movie's just really funny. Like
Yeah.
I laughed
Became
more
a
than I was
comedy.
afraid, which I don't count as a criticism.
So
Well, it
were
felt
you
like-
sobbing in this movie?
No.
The people behind us were
yeah, but
like losing
they were
their
like
shit.
excessively hardcore
They
Pennywise
were
fans.
dressed at. One of them was dressed as
Biggest
fans
on earth
Pennywise,
behind
and
us.
there was a quiz. A
Yeah.
really strange, a really strange
All
quiz
about
before
birthdays.
that were
Yeah.
only just questions about the
Dates.
birthdays, and they demand these.
They got all of them.
They were constantly raising their hand to try and win Pennywise pop.
Yeah, basically
heads
had
or
super
whatever.
fans behind us crying, and there were like moments in the film that I found touching, but nothing that would have
Yeah.
made me cry. It was mostly just like, I keep saying the word fun. It was entertaining. It was fun. It was a
It
fast
didn't seem
ride.
like it was 3 hours long.
Not at all. With flaws, but I really enjoyed it.
It felt like it was following a template because everyone goes off and they go to find their Horcrux, and it follows the template of like memory, scary, gone, and that was always it.
But they had to fight through the scary. Was part of it.
kind of,
Because
but
each of them had to like get through it.
You know, the only one that really wasn't like that was
Bill
Ben.
Hader? Oh, Ben.
Because Ben just goes to the school
Yeah,
and then
runs
remembers when
away.
he was scared as a kid,
wait,
which
but
is like different than the
I thought he
other
gets scared
kids.
as an adult too, like he's being chased or something.
No,
Well, they're always a little bit of both. But what I don't remember how he gets out of the school.
he just leaves. He goes and he sees the room
right.
and he goes, "Oh yeah, I remember that time when I was a kid and I got scared."
Yeah.
Well,
Because-
I think his was to do with nobody liking him and feeling like nobody cared about him, and then Beverly says something mean to him, and it was like that was just a fake trauma, obviously she liked him.
No,
but
yeah.
you're right. He just kind of does run away from Pennywise.
And then it just cuts back to him. But then it's him as a kid, hides in a locker, gets one last scare, comes out of the locker, and then it just cuts to adult him going, I do remember that being scary.
Yeah.
But like everyone else is...
He lost weight though, so he's fine. He got hot.
Oh, I remember the
dealt with
worst
it.
thing about this movie.
The worst?
Yeah, Richie goes to an arcade, and there's Mortal Kombat.
Street Fighter.
No, he plays Street Fighter. There's also Mortal Kombat.
Yep.
And I'm like, what the fuck is Mortal Kombat doing in 1989? Get out of
Wrestling.
here with that garbage.
Canceled.
Trash. Fire the production designer.
Well, they were probably like, it's a Warner Brothers studio thing. Hey, Papa
probably
Warner Brothers.
were.
And they were like, hey, we own this.
Yeah, get
Yeah.
it the fuck out of here. It doesn't make sense there.
Yeah, I don't know that Richie dealt with it as well. I know his was a lot of people staring at him, which I assumed was a throw to the stand-up stuff as well, because it was really, there was a shot of just people staring at him and not doing anything and not laughing, which is very similar to what he had earlier when he froze on stage. So it was just like a lot of things that I felt were like smart metaphors.
Well, he was like
but
infatuated with a kid, and then he gets, everyone's, much more
the
homophobic.
statue turns to
and-
life again, a thing you would have been scared of as a kid that you wouldn't be scared of as an adult.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, big Paul Bunyan.
Yeah, but and that was like,
Paul Bunyan. I don't remember. Wasn't Paul Bunyan part of his kid fear? Because his kids,
I
he
think you're
gets to
confusing
double
the
trauma.
miniseries again.
No. He comes out of the arcade after having a confrontation, and then he goes and he sits on the bench, and he notices the Paul Bunyan statue is gone, and then it tries to kill him, and then he goes, oh, and he almost dies, and then it cuts to adult him going, oh, I remember that, but then he then has a vision of Pennywise sitting on Paul Bunyan and then being confronted by Pennywise and then the people not
I think you're
laughing.
right.
So,
yeah.
but I mean, it still works. I'm just saying the only weird one was Ben.
Yeah.
Because Ben just went to the school and was like, I
Again,
found my note.
Ben's trauma was that he was fat, he got hot, he's fine.
The best part.
Look how hot he
My
is.
favorite
Rich.
part of the whole movie
guy.
was when Ben is. There's a point where Ben is trapped somewhere, and then Pennywise lifts open a thing, and he goes, "You can do all those sit-ups, but you're still just a fat kid inside." and I want a gif of it sent to Blaine.
Yeah, I know. I was just you said that, and I was like, "That's absolutely Blaine."
So one of my favorite parts of the movie we haven't talked about was when they were at the Chinese restaurant. All the fortune cookies start to
Yeah.
burst different little monsters.
Yeah.
And the CG was a little bit dodgy, but the concept of all these little fortune cookies cracking different creepy monsters was really neat.
It was grotesque.
Adam and I, along with Elise and Omar, went
Oh, yeah.
to a pop-up It 2 experience in Hollywood,
what?
which is basically a parking lot that they filled with a haunted house promoting the movie It.
Excellent.
Cool.
And one of the rooms was the Chinese restaurant,
Mm-hmm.
which is funny. I mean, obviously, you know it's going to be scary, but when you walk into it, you're like, oh, Chinese restaurant.
Yeah.
And they're like, gather around. And then there's like a on rails rat or whatever that goes back and forth.
Yeah. They
I
did-
was like, I can't wait to see how they do this one-winged bat and eyeball crawling
The
across
eyeball.
the air.
And it was a rat?
I think it was one of those things too where they're like, "Hey, we're doing this promotion. Can we get some footage of the movie?" Like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
You can use stuff from
You've
the
seen
trailer.
the trailer, like,
yeah,
this must-
because they do the part where you go in the room. They're like, are you still his little girl too? And then a guy in like a bodysuit that's not really the woman runs at you and then just goes back.
Yeah.
Is there
there's
a
some
part
cool-
where you get covered in period blood?
I wish.
No, they didn't
It's
do
not a
much
real Stephen
period
King
blood
experience
stuff.
if that doesn't happen.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know if
There's
you've
like
ever
under bleachers too. Like there's a
Yeah.
bunch of scenes from the movie,
Oh,
but
it's
none of
cute.
them
Was
are the
there
way
a-
they play out. in the
Yeah.
There was no Pennywise?
kind of.
Kind
Yeah,
of.
A guy in a Pennywise suit kind of comes out and just kind of goes, ah!
Boo, and then
Yeah.
leaves.
And then he goes behind. He went behind a like a transparent wall and started flossing.
Was
I had
that
a
a
great
joke?
time.
He was having. I was having. I had fun.
Okay.
It was good. It was like, I don't know if you've ever been to a haunted house.
Yeah.
It's just people with wood blocks hitting shit.
Yeah.
He's Amish. Of course, he's been to a haunted house. He's a
Never.
35-year-old man.
Talking to the audience. Like any modern. There's also the really weird haunted houses that I have friends who've gone to where you have to sign a waiver where they're like allowed to punch you and shit. Where it's like-
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've never been to that. Blackout.
I'm-
I always
Yeah.
wanted
There's
to.
a place called McCamey Manor that I did a YouTube dive on for like 7 hours one time, where you have to sign a waiver and they only like select really specific people and they waterboard you supposedly.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah, I've seen that too. Was that on
fascinating.
Sound
that
fun.
dark Place show? There's like a show on Netflix.
I don't know, maybe.
This guy did
It's
a show.
very specific, and they don't let any filming.
Yeah.
But it's,
I
it
got
looks super
tied
fucked
into
up.
a chair one time, but that was as far as they went. And they were like, "You're our victim," and you have to say that. I'm like,
This
got it.
wasn't that. It had a little mouse that went.
Either way, it was funny because we're all like, I know the whole thing was set up there. It was like, go see it. You know,
We had already seen it.
and we're like, I've seen it. It's good. I feel like I've lived it now.
Yeah.
It's good. Was there mirrors? Was there a mirror room? There should have been a mirror room.
Yeah.
I think
There was.
I liked
Clowns
that
movie.
scene. I thought that was smart. There was just a lot of like very interesting visual stuff, even though I did feel like at some point it was too much and not enough substance. But
More Pennywise.
There
My
just
only
was
my
not
only
enough
complaint.
Pennywise.
More Pennywise.
There was a
Yeah,
really
I
rad
agree with
shot
that.
towards the end when they're beating up Pennywise, and he's got like this hole in his head that's full of teeth, and his 3 lights are kind of hovering behind him. It just looked like something from a metal.
There was
album
there was a
cover.
lot
It
of
was
thought
really
put
cool.
into like how the deadlights worked and how it filtered through the back of his. There's a lot of cool visuals.
final boss Pennywise is dope.
Yeah,
Very
It
cool.
looked like a Dark Souls boss.
It really
Just
did.
the pursuit and how again it makes them so small in comparison. They look like children. It's just like I was very on board with the theme of
But
childhood
just
drama.
that final shot of Pennywise, like I felt bad for him.
Oh, yeah.
When he's got his little baby hands, he's like, "No, don't take my heart."
I felt bad for him a lot. I
Me
felt
too.
bad for him when the little girl was like, I don't know, and he's like, nobody wants to play with me.
And then he bites
You
her
fucking
face
need to,
off.
yeah.
Poor
like
Pennywise.
I said, I would be totally down for a spin-off series of like
Pennywise in
like
history.
I would just call it Derry, and it would be like the history of Derry, and
don't do this.
I'd be okay
well,
with
it's
that.
gonna I mean, the last movie made a fuck ton of money.
Yeah.
If this one makes anywhere close to that, they're gonna try and spin it off or
sentenced us.
prequel it.
I'd love to see
no less than 8 seasons of a show called Derry.
Here's the thing.
Some Warner executive.
Let me set it up
So
for you.
like, fun what?
So
And
the
then
town
look
of
at this
Derry.
video.
Yeah, they
no
own
one-
it now. You said it on
Also,
a podcast.
no one will
owned by
settle
Warner.
in this town of Derry. Pennywise has been living here for thousands of
No,
years.
you don't need to pitch it.
No, here's the thing. No one could live there until one day the circus comes into town, and this creature realizes, oh, people love clowns. And that's when he
Anyway,
gets the
Dan, what was
idea.
your favorite part of the film?
No, I like the pitch.
Damn
There
it.
you go.
It's gonna happen. It's really
I gave
gonna
you an out.
happen.
Except that what Adam's pitching is a creative take. What an executive is going to come up with is, well, we did a survey and the only characters' names that anyone knows are Pennywise and Derry.
Woman. Oh.
So we're gonna have
girl.
Pennywise. Pennywise is now the hero, and it's gonna be Pennywise fighting against other ghouls and stuff. It's a prequel to
No.
Pennywise.
I think it's made too much money for modern studios to.
I know, and I know people want 7 parts of stuff. So
Yeah, exactly.
I don't feel like you can make an It Chapter 3 though.
Sure you
like
can.
they can't.
chapter 0.
They're just gonna go.
Year 1.
They're just gonna go find other. Stephen King is his own MCU.
It's
So
true.
the
Yeah.
good thing about it is they're just
Except
going to go,
Dark Tower
oh, okay,
failed.
I guess Stephen King movies make X amount of dollars. The lines that you draw
Which is not
into
true.
correlation are always hilarious.
Yeah.
But they'll be like, oh, It Too is really successful. So that means if we get a completely different director, completely different creative team, and choose a completely different book, it'll be just as successful.
So
they keep trying that.
I was not around when you guys talked about It Chapter 1, but the girl that played young Beverly, Sophia Lillis, I think, is really a standout for me. I don't know about you guys, but I thought she was better than Jessica Chastain was as the grown-up version
Settle
of
down,
herself.
Epstein.
Kaboom.
I thought there
Yeah,
was some
thanks a
fucking
lot.
weird camera
I just
choices.
thought she was spectacular. I don't know.
The
She's
weird
going
camera
places.
choices on Girl Beverly, where they like just kept panning on the 12-year-old while she was in the sun, but it was trying to give you the gaze of her male friends and how they felt about her, but it was still like, she's a child. That's a bit weird. And it, like,
She's a woman,
She is
okay,
now.
according to the film.
she has her period. I'm Stephen King.
Once again, haven't read the book, read the wiki.
Oh, they
At
left
least
some
they
stuff
all didn't
out.
bang her. is what
Yeah,
I'm gonna
there's
say.
the part where they didn't run the train on her, so that's good.
They did not all have sex with her to get out of the cave. That is a
Yeah,
good point.
we're stuck in the cave. How do we get out? Let's
Everybody
do the
just-
girl.
I have an
Bangs
idea.
Beverly.
It says
How
with
does
his
that
eyes
work?
starting left and right.
I think Pennywise is like too much for
The
me.
point is that
He
it brings
lets them
them.
out.
It brings them all together. It makes
Yeah.
them bond. But like, it gives you her internal monologue while it's happening, and she'll be like, "Oh, he's too big for me. This one is quite large." You're like, "You're 12. Please make it stop."
Dear God,
Yeah,
I
that
thought it was
sounds
also
awful.
like it was for them to overcome their innocence or something like that.
Yeah, I
it
think
was,
that too.
They break that is their journey into adulthood, and it's man.
But how does that get them out of the hole?
That's
it-
a
it-
coked
They're
out
almost
Stephen
about
King.
to give up because they're lost, but then that gives them the fortitude to press on.
Okay.
It brings them together,
good.
bonding,
Yeah.
adulthood, etc., etc.
All aboard the Beverly Express.
Yeah.
I think
she is great, though.
my final thoughts. She's great. Final thoughts on this movie are that I think it was definitely a harder to stick this landing than it was to stick the first one. The first one, as far as I'm concerned, is impeccable. I bought it as soon as I saw it, and I've watched it probably 4 or 5 times and thoroughly enjoy seeing it and sharing it with people. I think the second one I will watch again. I'm not going to rush out and buy it, but I think it was a harder film to make, and I still think it's really good. Anytime you can make something that's almost 3 hours and you're not wanting to kill yourself, it's like an
Yeah.
I remember a lot of people were a little skeptical, including myself, when they first showed Pennywise. Like, oh no, like you have to live with the Tim Curry one, which is so hard to do.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, Skarsgård's so great.
He owns it.
He's a new
Completely.
Pennywise.
I love him as Pennywise.
Yeah, I think my summary would be I loved it. I feel like there are a lot more flaws than there were in Chapter 1, but I can excuse most of them because it's such a fun ride.
I also enjoyed the ride, just kind of bored by too much of, hey, we have to remember what happened to us, which is an easier thing maybe to sell in a book that these children have forgotten. It's a harder thing to visualize that all these people don't have memories now of something that happened to them.
There was one shot that stood out to me where I'm almost positive they were on a green screen. And
Sure.
they're when they're out in the woods, and I was like, ooh.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, that's
I know what
rough.
you're talking about.
That's a rough one. There's a
It
shot
probably
of,
won't age that well, unfortunately. Or maybe intentionally, so they can be like, but it aged bad. We need to make another one.
I would love to see a fan edit or something like it where you cut the 2 movies together, and you can do some of the repetitious sort of stuff, or you could do a little more stylistically or something where they don't look like flesh children.
Adam, stop pitching all your good ideas publicly. You could do that yourself and make
The
no
director
money
said he's
from
already
it.
doing it. He's got one in his van.
It's happening.
So
Wait, he's making a cut of both movies in one?
Quote, the possibilities are open. There's a version where the 2 movies are cut together. There's a version where there's a special director's cut of number 1 and a special director's cut of number 2. And I'm happy to basically work on every one of them.
Excellent.
I like money.
He says until his next gig comes through,
Which may be the
Penny
Flash.
what?
Maybe the Flash.
Look, if
He's
the Flash,
rumored to be attached to a Flash movie.
if he doesn't do it, Topher Grace will. And
Thanks,
that's fine.
Topher.
Yeah.
Are we restarting the Flash, or do we have to consider?
I think
that
it's still Ezra Miller.
really.
Ugh.
I mean, I'm fine with that. He was fine,
Yeah,
but
I
is he still pushing that truck full of Russian family people?
I think so.
Getting him
Still
home.
to this day.
that was a subplot. Thank you for the reminder.
Thanks, Joss.
Was it or just a joke? I don't know.
That was
Who
all
knows?
Joss Whedon. There was
Who
one. There was a
knows?
thread. Getting off topic, but there was a great thread that said, someone who worked in special effects, like visual effects, was like, here's the stuff that Joss Whedon added, and here's the stuff that was in it originally, and what was supposed to be there, and all of that garbage was, I guess, Joss Whedon trying to add levity to the film. It's terrible.
Joy.
Anyway.
All right, Adam, let's hear more about your spin-off of it.
Oh, okay. So the caravan pulls up, and there's the little girl, and you go, "Oh, that's the one from It Too." And
Wait,
she goes,
what little girl
And
from
her,
It
and
Too?
no, well, you meet her dad, and it's played by Mr. Skarsgård, and then you realize it takes on his persona, and like he like learns from him how to be a
See,
clown.
you're going the wrong way again. It is the hero because they did the survey.
We get It Junior,
So,
where he's
okay.
like an anti-hero.
It starts with that caravan pulling up, and he's a good man. He just
Okay.
wants to do the right thing and protect his town.
You know, the guy in the caravan is not it. It takes his form.
He goes into this tunnel and finds it, and he's like, ah!
Okay.
And then he's like, ah, it's so hot, and he gets into a lobster tank.
Okay.
He's like, oh, it's way better.
There you go.
So eventually, yes. At a point shortly after the show is canceled, we will get into it becoming a villain. But for the sake of this show, Pennywise is the hero.
And there's another.
Yes,
What we didn't
a
know
worse
was
one.
there were 2 Pennywises that fell.
Penny dumb.
All right. Thanks for coming around listening to us this week. We'll see you guys again next week. I guess in the comments, let us know what you think a sequel or spinoff or prequel for It should be. Anything
turtle.
else, guys?
No, we'll see
and
you in
it's more
season
Turtle
12
God.
of Dairy.
I just want to maintain it was really funny. Everyone did a great job of reacting even to spooky things in a way that was funny. It was a good comedy, and I didn't expect that.
Good comedy. All right. Bye, everybody.
Enjoy the film. And it looked like, they're about to form an alliance because he go. I mean, great scene, by the way. I loved it when he goes, I'm tired of all this. I killed my dad. I don't want to be here no more. And he's like, let's go do our own thing. Let's get out of here.
Yeah.
And then she goes, no, I fight for the rebels. And he's like, whatever.
You are lost, is what she says.
Did she say that?
No, Ian McGregor